Y'all remember when the president said this?
Field, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats.
And then I said this? It would be foolish in the extreme to think that the idea, suspicion, outrage, and fear that Trump is inciting are simply dismissed by the majority of the people that you might encounter in hunting spaces. Well, look what happened. I hate to say I told you so, but well, let's just talk about it. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Jonathan. I'm a wildlife ecology professor showing you how to build the wild kitchen. So the conversation on race and hunting is virtually non-existent. Ever since that brief flurry in 2020, the appetite for mainstream hunting outlets to talk about how race and hunting are related has dried up. But given the metrics on this channel, you all want to hear more about how race relates to hunting. Now, a lot of you have really strong feelings about it. Many of you disagree with my analysis of what I'm seeing and understanding. But I think it was important to revisit this video because a few weeks after I posted, this happened. A neighbor of the person whose land I hunt on found my content and decided to voice their opinion on what they thought about my practice of hunting groundhogs, which I wasn't even doing on this friend's property. But I digress. Now, the fact that I told you all this would happen is not really the point of this video. What I want to do is talk about how we take events like this and put it in the broader context of the conversation of race and hunting. Don't worry, for all you fragile white people who are already getting ready to write some hateful comments, this story actually has a happy ending. So in this episode, I want to talk about why this is an example of racism, why things like this are dangerous, and discuss a little bit about how I responded and how this entire situation was resolved. Again, it has a happy ending. All right, let's go. Hey folks, I just wanted to take a break and let you know that one of the best ways to get the most out of the content on this channel is to subscribe to my newsletter. Every Sunday, I give you more depth and insight into the topics I cover on Out There JCH, including thoughts and perspectives that I don't really share on this platform. The newsletter is free to sign up, and as an incentive to becoming a subscriber, I'm offering a free wild food resource guide that will help make you a more capable harvester and home cook. Just click the link in the description to sign up. Okay, let's get back to the episode. All right, so let's first talk about why Doris's comments are an example of racism. And anytime we have a conversation on racism in this country, it's difficult for a lot of people who haven't thought about this issue to conceptualize racism as something that goes beyond people having active animus in their hearts towards another race. Now, certainly, walking around with tiki torches and pitchforks, wearing a pointy hat, calling for people to be lynched are clear examples of racism. Using a racial slur is an example of racism. But the way that racism functions goes so far beyond individual actions and how someone feels in their heart. The most persistent and pernicious form of racism is simply leveraging power over others to their detriment on the basis of race. Now, in this case, Doris found my account, saw my posts about hunting and harvesting groundhogs, which is something that she didn't like, and then used a racist trope provided by President of the United States to accuse me of something that is pretty ridiculous. What's curious about Doris's comments is that she also has access to the social media account of her neighbor, the person whose land I hunt on, but did not post any messages on their account and didn't send any message about his practice of also hunting groundhogs. The trope of black people eating people's cats and dogs really wouldn't work with my friend who is white. And what's also interesting about Doris's comments is the implied threat that they do not appreciate what I am allegedly doing in their space and the power that Doris would have to prevent me from doing something she disagrees with. So in short, there's really no reason for Doris to accuse me of trapping and eating her cats other than the fact that the now most powerful person in this country believes that black people in Springfield, Ohio are doing the same thing. Now, it's clear that Doris is not a particular fan of harvesting relatives, but that's different than accusing someone of doing something that is largely socially unacceptable. Is Doris a racist person? We'll come back to that. But at the end of the day, that's not really the point. The point is, Doris did something that's pretty cut and dry racist. And the responsibility of anyone in this situation is to address a person's actions so that things like this have a lower likelihood of happening. Who a person is not really the point of this video or any discussions on racist acts. The point is to stop the racist acts and have an outcome where all parties involved learn and are better people on the other side of it. Okay, let's talk about why situations like this are dangerous. White people in America have a long history of invoking authority over black people and using violent means to enforce that authority. Whether it's Garrick and Carl Hopkins being shot to death by their white neighbor over suspicions of trespassing while they were on their own property, or Ahmaud Arbery going for a run in a neighborhood where two men decided that he was up to no good. White people in this country are socialized to believe that no matter who they are, they have a right to police the actions of black people and people of color. And we also have examples, particularly with white women, of summoning the authorities to reinforce the white supremacist idea that white people should be allowed to go wherever they please and do whatever they want, regardless of what other people might be doing in that space. Whether it's Carolyn Bryant Donham accusing Emmett Till of whistling at her, or Amy Cooper calling the police on Christian Cooper, no relation, in Central Park when Christian asked Amy to simply follow the rules and keep her dog on a leash. When white people decide to make it known that they do not approve of what black people or other people of color are doing in a particular space, things can and often get out of hand very quickly. Thankfully, this situation didn't really get out of hand, primarily because both Doris and I know the people caught in the middle of this dispute. In fact, it was my friends whose property I hunt on who alerted me to Doris's comments on my social media platform. And that went a long way for me because in trying to resolve the situation, I wanted to be respectful of the fact that my friends still have to live next to Doris and interact with her on a regular basis. On the other side, I think it helped, as you'll see, that Doris knew that I was friends with the people whose property I hunt on. But as we know, this isn't always the case. And it's a helpful reminder that relationships, our ability to understand each other, and our familiarity with each other goes a long way to having more peaceful, civil, and amicable relations. Okay, so I mentioned that this interaction actually had a happy ending. And I think I'm going to talk about this in a future video about how I am dealing with the racist and ignorant comments that come from so many people when I talk about the subject of race and hunting. The short version of how I responded to Doris was to first and foremost engage her humanity, to treat her response as almost like a racist fugue state that people enter into, where they don't really understand what they're doing, and in my response believe that I can bring them back to a more sensible conversation. And it takes a lot of patience. But in this case, and in other cases, I found that it really pays off. When you ask people questions about themselves, where you try to understand how they might be feeling and look for a path back to a way of mutual understanding, over the course of several back and forths, Doris actually apologized for accusing me of trapping and eating her feral cats, and largely on her own admitted that what she was initially doing was not something that she truly believed, but rather was a way to channel her anger and disagreement with the practice of hunting. And so we come back to this question of, do I think Doris is a racist person? And the answer to that question is, no, I don't really think she's a racist person. Because a person who is so deeply invested in racism isn't going to be able to apologize for doing something like accusing me of eating feral cats. And I think this is an important example that bigotry can live in all of us, and we can all leverage the power that comes with a particular identity against a more marginalized identity for an outcome that ends up doing harm. And this is why I think it's so important for hunters to be thinking about and talking about these issues and understand how each of us can do harm if we're not paying attention to the ways that we are being manipulated into thinking things about other people that we really don't believe and really don't understand. One of the lessons that I take from this situation is how clearly you can draw a line between President Trump's comments and the actions of an everyday person in invoking those comments and sentiments to marginalize people. And the wild thing is, people like Trump and Vance and others who invoke this trope know exactly what they're doing. The point of making these comments is so that everyday people like Doris will take these wild accusations to heart and use them to marginalize people who don't want to have equal access to space, resources, and power. The interaction that Doris and I had was exactly the point of why Trump and Vance made that ridiculous comment. And it's the same tactic that rich and powerful white men have been using in this country to establish and maintain their power and abuse their own people. And so what I want people to learn from this situation is to first and foremost not be so gullible. If you were paying attention, you could have seen this outcome from a mile away. I literally told y'all this would happen, and it happened. I didn't necessarily think it was going to happen to me, but given the way things turned out, I'm glad it did, and not to someone where the outcome would have been worse. We have to be aware, we have to be unafraid, and we have to be ready to engage in good faith on these issues that impact all of us, regardless of how they might make us feel initially. Let's not think another person's thoughts. Let's not do the violent, dirty work of others. Stay woke, yo. All right, if you're ready to dive a little bit deeper into the conversations on race and hunting, check out this video to keep the learning and dialogue going. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on